Hey everybody, it's Dana. Welcome back. Today we're going to be playing with the Hero Art September 2017 monthly card kit. I love the pumpkins and I love the paper that comes in as kits. You guys hear me say it all the time. Do not throw away the backing. You can make beautiful cards with this. So today we're going to be using the pumpkin and I'm going to go ahead and get started on this card. This card kit, I believe, sold out immediately, but if you were able to get your hands on it, you are absolutely going to love playing with it. So I'm going to use a rectangle die on my card today. So that's why I'm going to keep pulling in this die just to make sure that my design is going to fit in the middle of this. Also in this September kit, you're going to see some beautiful sunflowers as well as some really gorgeous sentiments. Today, like I said, we're going to be using the pumpkins. And in this kit for this month, it's a layering set. So this pumpkin has 3 layers to it, a base layer, a middle layer, and then a top layer. So I'm starting with the base layer. And I'm going to be using some different inks, some Memento Dew Drops. I'll make sure to link all of the colors down below in the description box of the colors that I used to make this pumpkin. So I'm pressing down the first color and I'm going to make sure I double stamp this because I really want my pumpkin to have some rich color. So I'm using my Misty for this so I can make sure that all of my layers are layered correctly on top of each other. So I'm going to go in with my next detailed layer, and this is layer number 2. I'm going to line that up right on top and press my lid down. Now, anytime you're doing this technique, you're going to want to use 3 different inks. Now, if you do not have 3 different inks, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip. You can use the same ink pad, but stamp it multiple times. So let's say for instance you only have one color of orange, just have the first layer stamped once, the second layer stamped twice, and the third layer stamped 3 times. That's just in case you do not have 3 different colors of orange. So for my last layer, I'm going to go ahead and line that one up as well and press down my lid. And I love seeing any kind of layered stamp sets. I think they're absolutely so beautiful because it really gives a great detailed and dimensional look to your images. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that down one more time and I have this gorgeous pumpkin. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do my stem. Now I'm going to show you that you can use only one ink. So for my stem, I'm only going to use one brown ink pad. So I'm going to line up the top of my stem with the top of my pumpkin. And for this color, I'm going to use some of the Memento Rich Cocoa. Now this is going to be the only ink color I'm going to use. So I'm just going to stamp this down one time. Now for this part, it only has 2 layers. So I'm going to grab my next layer. I'm going to line that up on the top. And once I get this lined up, you're going to be able to see a color variation between the layer that's going to be underneath and the layer that's going to be on top. So this is really easy to do, especially if you don't have multiple colors of ink. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that ink on there and I'm going to bring it over and close my lid. That's one time. I'm going to ink it up again and I'm going to stamp it down again. And you're going to be able to see the color difference. You're going to see that lighter brown underneath and the darker brown on top. So one ink pad and I'm able to get that color variation. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and grab out a sentiment. Now, I was really thinking in my head as I was doing this card on exactly how I wanted to make it. I was thinking I was going to just keep it a little bit clean and simple, but sometimes when you're making a card, kind of things you're thinking, and then you're like, nope, I need to add something more. And that's what was happening with this card. So I pulled out my sentiment and I'm liking that, but then I felt like I wanted to have more pumpkins. So I decided to stamp out this pumpkin another time and go ahead and create a mask for it, because I wanted to have a trio of pumpkins instead of just the one pumpkin. So I went ahead and created a mask out of some masking paper, and I'm just going to trim that out and stamp out a couple more pumpkins. I'm going to stamp them the same exact way, but I'm going to have 2 miniature pumpkins. So now I can remove the mask and I have 2 miniature pumpkins right next to the big one. I think the trio looks better than having just the one large pumpkin. So now I'm going to come back in and put back in my greeting. So I made sure to keep everything within that frame. And I think that looks fabulous. That looks so much better than just having that one pumpkin down. So I'm going to go ahead and close my lid, pick up my card, and now I can go ahead and stamp down my sentiment. So this looks like a beautiful, nice fall card. Just going to go ahead and shift that over, make sure everything still lines up. And then I'm going to grab myself some pretty paper. I'm going to use the Lawn Fawn Fall Perfectly Plaid Fall paper. I've had this paper for a while and I love, love, love the colors in this paper pad. It just totally reminds me of fall. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same brown ink, which is the Rich Cocoa, that I stamped my top of my pumpkin with, to stamp out my greeting. So I'm going to double stamp that again because I really want this greeting to be really nice and dark. And I'm going to make sure to stamp it just one more time. I don't want it to look black, but I do want it to look like a really deep brown. So all of the stamping is done. So now I'm going to bring back in my die and line that up. And then I can go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. All right, I have everything die cut out, but now I want to ground my scene. So I'm going to grab some Distress ink and my little finger daubers, and I'm going to just try to keep my frame onto my piece of paper because I do want to have a light white border around the image. So I'm just going to hold my stitch rectangle in place, and I'm just going to use my little dauber just to add a little bit of greenery right underneath my pumpkin. Now I am dabbing off a little bit of the extra ink off to the side on a scratch piece of paper, and I'm just bringing in that color right underneath. Now I am doing like little dots, so it kind of looks like there's a little bit of shading from the roundness of the pumpkins underneath. And then I'm just doing a little bit of swirling motions underneath just with that little finger dauber. Now, you could try to use a blending tool, but then I would have to mask my images again, and I didn't want to have to go through all that fuss. So I'm just going to use a finger dauber for this. So if you try this technique, just make sure that you take off any of the excess before you bring it over to your image. So that looks about right. Now I'm going to grab another finger dauber so I can use some of the blue. Now, in order to get a cloudy kind of look, I'm just going to go in and dab in some areas of blue to fill in some sky. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to knock off any extra off onto the side of a piece of paper and then just dab in some blue. And this just gives my card a little bit more color and a touch of whimsy with a sky and some place for my pumpkins to land. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. And this technique is really, really easy to do. All right, I think that looks fantastic. And I still have that nice, clean, white little border around this piece. All right, now since that's done, we can go ahead and pull that up so I can give you a real good close-up. And now I'm going to use some of that plaid paper just for a background piece. I'm going to use a die that's going to give me a really pretty scallop little border. I'm going to run it through my die cut machine, and now I have a cute little rectangle, but I'm also going to have a scallop little edge around it. So I'm going to first lay down my little plaid rectangle with my ATG gun. And then for the scallop piece, I'm going to want to use some wet adhesive on this. This is going to give me the opportunity to make sure I can line everything up. So I'm just going to grab some of my multi-matte medium and go all the way around the edges on this, just so I have some wiggle room to line this back up. And I thought just by giving this a little bit of a fun border, instead of just a straight border, will give a tad bit of cuteness to this card. So I'm going to press that down and line that back up. I swear I can't say enough about this paper. I absolutely love this paper. It just screams fall to me. And we don't get fall here in Florida, so this is about as fall as we're going to get in 90-degree weather. So I'm going to go ahead and press that all back down. And then my card is nearly complete. That looks fantastic. Now, off camera, I went ahead and I grabbed some of the packaging. They had some raffia, which is like paper ribbon. And I went ahead and wrapped that around my card and I made a bow. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pop up my panel and place this right on the front of my card. And this card is done. Really clean and simple. So here is what the card looks like, totally done. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. I will see you guys in another video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.